So a little bit of a recap of Oasis 04. So it's if you're watching this in future, it's December 2022. Throughout this year, we've been doing a lot of updates to basically everything that is Oasis inside of a browser, and there's more and more that we have available that people have kind of come to you to depend upon. The best way to explain it, inside a legacy Oasis or the desktop version of Oasis. So as I get started here, I'm going to show a little bit of contrast and make some assumptions that you've seen Oasis on the desktop or legacy version, and you're just curious of what's going on as far as the browser version or Oasis 04, as we like to say. All right, so if you log into legacy Oasis, there's always the little application bar on the left side, is what I usually called it. And we hid that in the browser version. If you click on this little Oasis logo, you see the same application without icons, basically, but basically the same application list. So there's home, there's manufacturers, projects, the whole bit. It's in there. Most of it works, and we're going to go through pieces of that today as much as I can, because I've only been given an hour, let's put it that way. So if we go back to home here, this is the home screen. It does look a lot different than legacy Oasis. So it has these things we call tiles in here. And if you've heard one of the other webinars, or actually I'll refer back to the other webinars on some of these, like the bidboard tile and a few of these others, but I'm going to pick at a few details on some new ones and some of them that we found that have been pretty good for a lot of folks that we've talked to day in, day out. Bidboard tile is kind of neat. You can set it up to show you the bidboard, or actually email you the bidboard at night. You can click into it on your iPhone and actually take a look at the projects in Oasis. So it's been kind of a nice one for folks. The order summary, I use it actually to take a look and see how the volume or orders are closing through the day or the week here at our business as well. So this has been a nice one. You just click into it, and again, we've covered those in the past, so I'll skip it. Win-loss tile takes a lot of conversation on that one. We've talked through this one before, and it's a really nice tile just to show what your win-loss rate is, on quotes and volume there. And it does update once a week. So that's one thing that is different is some of these update like nightly. In the case of the bidboard, order summary updates about every 15 minutes or so, although this one's broke because it's a test database. And then win-loss will update once a week. That's just the way it works. All right, samples. There is a sample tile. So if you happen to use ours, and this is one of the new ones that I wanted to touch on, if you click into the sample tile, what's nice about it is it will show you samples that have been dropped off and are overdue. So I should have already picked this up, this particular item out. I know where it's at. I need to go there, pick up the sample, bring it back, and return it to wherever we store it. So check it in, if you will. If it's dropped off and due the coming week, it shows here as well on the right-hand side. We're going to clean this up and change it up a little bit, but anyway, that's what it's trying to show here. Also, the returns shows these are the samples we should have already returned. Again, this is a sample database, so there's a lot of junk in there. But these are the ones that we probably are going to get charged for. So it's just the listing there. And again, we can receive it back in, send it over to the factory, or at least tell Oasis we did that, and it'll pull it off this list. And we do try to show you the upcoming returns as well. So it's just a nice little tile that updates and allows people to see what's out and where it's at. So, and these are the samples that are checked out. So pretty simple, basic piece of information there to go forward as far as the samples there. All right, go back to the home screen. Now, there are a couple of new ones that we have out there. I'll show one of them that's out now, that's in beta. And it's basically an activity tile. And I'm going to show it by showing you how to set it up. There's some details in here, but it can be set up for activity. I have this one set up to show login activity. So who's been logging into this particular 04 instance out here. But you can set it up for other activity. And I'll show you this real quick. Go to tiles and create a new activity tile, user activity. And the reason why I do this is there's a listing down here. And again, this is in beta. There's still documentation to come out, but we've had a few users find this. So I want to kind of touch on it real quick, just so we can get more and more feedback as it goes from beta to production. So.
Because worst case, we can always. Do you get what I'm saying? Then can adjust it, and mature you can make it.
All right, so what we have here, user logins, this will be the traditional desktop logins. Web logins will be through the browser. Oasis support logins, we actually track our own support logins. So if you have issues with O4, we actually request what we call a support token. And if one of our techs gets into your instance to show what's going on, you'll actually be able to monitor it just like the rest of users. And part of that is just showing you the fact that we got into your system. Okay. User API logins, we have more and more folks actually using APIs to call and pull data of Oasis and put it into Power BI. I'm not going to touch on that today, but again, you can watch and monitor that data pull. So if you have an issue with a linkage to Microsoft or something like that, you can kind of watch when it happens and it worked. Contact portal, this is the actual customer portal out there. And again, find out if your users are using the system and when they're using it. See, it's kind of interesting to kind of watch that data and find out who's getting in and when. So. And then the rest of this is gets into page hits, which I think is kind of nifty, but it's just how many people are hitting what pages out there, which is kind of nice. And it kind of goes through there. The rest of these, as far as the user PO create, quote create, and it gets down into actions, which are prints, if you will. I printed a quote, I printed a PO, and so forth. Those are tracking the actual POs and transactions. So if you want to take a look at this from more of a management style to find out how many quotes are being created, how often, you can just check that box and save it. And you can also click this little box. We're doing this more and more of the tiles where you can just say send a daily recap, and it'll run through it at night, send you an email and say, hey, here's what's going on throughout the day, which is real nice. I actually use this myself. And the result is something like this. Since I have this one set up, I just checked the user login on this. So now I can actually take a look at the activity of my users, actually of the people that work here, and see what's going on. So right now what it's trying to show is this is Saturday through Sunday, okay? Or actually Sunday through Saturday, backwards there. And it goes back 4 weeks, if memory serves, 4 or 5 weeks. So I can see everything real quick just on this item here. If I click into this, then I see basically the entire year, a rolling year out here. So these are the days out here, and I can see the activity. This is a test database we use at Lightfair and some other places. So there really hasn't been much on this since Lightfair, actually. But for yours, there'll be more, whatever's in there, actually. So nice little tile, works great, gives you a lot of information, presents real nicely with this little chart right here, and just one of those little things we added along the way. Okay. And if you have any questions on that, post those in the chat. Trinity will stop me at the end of about 15 minutes before, and we'll kind of touch on some other stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and go through the rest of these real quick. There is a quote monitor out here. I'm not ready to show you the details on this. We're still arguing about logos and names and stuff like that on there, but it pretty much works. It's just trying to get through all the little what is it going to look like, and which page is going to show what detail. And there's going to be an email on this as well. But the main thing is, if you send a quote out to a customer, this little tile will sit there and watch it for you. And if the factory comes along and discontinues something on that, like you send a quote out and then a week later they discontinue an item, it's going to send you an email and say, hey, you need to go check out that mall job or baseball or whatever it is, and say, hey, they just discontinued that fixture. So you need to take a look at it. It does other things on pricing, and also does a little bit of as far as shipping. So it takes a look and says, hey, it doesn't look like you're going to actually meet a ship date if they were to release that today. So look for all that after the first of the year. Like I said, we're at the final stages on this one as far as making it look pretty, if you will. So. All right, that's the details there. The rest of these I've talked over before, and I'm just going to move on to projects and kind of show you where we're at there. All right, projects. What I want to do real fast, just throw together just a real quick little job and roll through the basics. Mostly, if you've used Oasis in the past, you're going to find that it works somewhat similar, but it looks different. And that's posed an interesting little conversation that I've had with a few folks out there. So for a long time, everyone, or I wouldn't say everyone, but a number of users have told me, hey, you need to make Oasis look modern. It's like, okay, fine. So in the browser version, we try to make it look more modern. And now we're getting people is like, well, why didn't you make the new version look like the old one? Because it's confusing. So we're balancing this one out. Bear with us on this one, but we are trying to give it a little bit of a facelift as we put it in the browser, as opposed to make it look like the old one. And it's causing some conversations. I'll simply say that. So I'm in here. I can still do a search. The rest of this works pretty much the same. And again, we've laid it out to where it feels similar to the legacy Oasis. And that's the purpose, but it's going to look a little bit different. But let me go ahead and just create a new project. And the first element here is it does have this wizard way of walking through stuff. So instead of dumping you in the middle of the project editor and saying, what's the name? And then you go find a page or whatever on that for, as far as the bill of material or the attachments, whatever. It walks you through a set of items that it asks, and it's a little different. It's a little different feel. I've had people say good things and bad things about it, but this is where we're at the moment. What I'll say on this one is I don't know, just make something up here. Same stuff is in here. Where's it at? State or province, if you're in Canada, province, spec registration, all this stuff is the same stuff we've had in the past. I'll just go and blast through a number of this. Start date, by the way, please put in the, start thinking about putting in start dates. Like I was hinting at on that, that new tile, we're using the start date as a date that we're looking at as far as when we have to have stuff shipped and on site. Preferably before that construction started. We're working on some details there, but that's one of the dates we're looking at to find out if you'll even make a ship date if they were to release that job today. So that goes back to the other tile. So more on that as that tile comes out. Vertical markets, I'm getting a lot of folks putting in vertical markets now, so please do that. And everything else that you've kind of grown to know inside of Oasis. Next. Specifiers, I'm not going to add in on these, but you can click add and add in as many as you had normally. The only difference is here you have to click add first, where in the past we had 3 or 4 of them that just popped in automatically. So next, we do have sales accounts. I can add in and identify who gets a percentage on this because I didn't select a specifier. It has to draw it off of this. So it's as easy as, you know, hey, they're actually going to get 100% of it, right? Next, and in here, search tags. I have one search tag in here that has A and B on it. I didn't set this thing up, but that's all we have. But you can add in your search tags for, you know, whatever on there. Hit create. It's now creating the project inside the job or inside the server, and it's there. At this point, there's a lot I could show. Believe it or not, everything from spread profit to math functions to whatever you've known inside of Legacy is in here. Ever so often we'll find one that, you know, that one little feature we forgot and have to add it back in, but there it is. Most of it should be there because we've had multiple people really looking at it and giving us feedback. So anyway, find something, let us know. Works pretty well though. What I'm going to do today is just put in a few items here, just kind of show it works. Create a submittal, create an order, and at that point, show you some other new stuff that's kind of neat as far as O4 goes. All right, so bear with me. I'm just going to type in just some stuff. Fixture type A, BDM, yeah, that's the factory, I guess. I give them a little new order entry pop-ups. All that stuff works the same. I'm using my keyboard, by the way. I don't have to use the mouse very much. And again, we've kind of paid attention to little things like that, like we did in Legacy Oasis. So I'm using my keyboard. I don't have to use the mouse that much. But let me go ahead and do it. 6. That'll work. And priced it. And the one thing on this is as we're going through and creating O4, we are working with the manufacturers that actually work with us. I'll leave it at that, and make sure that their connectivity, their pricing connectivity and so forth is up and going. So it's a tedious process, but that is happening as well. Okay. All right. Fixture type, put in 12 Bs and do premium lighting. I don't know who made up all this stuff. It's kind of odd names here. Bear with me because they don't make sense, but we'll work with it anyway. 4 type E's, man, EML, I guess. 108. All right, works the same pretty much. The one thing that is a little different is we had to make some choices because we're also trying to make a lot of this fit not only in the browser. So I'm on a MacBook Pro, by the way, if anybody cares, but I can do the same thing on an iPad or Microsoft Surface. And the whole goal is to make it to where you're using less screen real estate, best way to explain it. So in Legacy Oasis, we got a little carried away with putting a lot of little icons, a lot of little menus. And it got kind of hard for some of the folks trying to use a smaller form factor devices. But here, if you notice, we took away all the tabs. But if I go back, there's a little go back button right here. What it will do is it take me out of edit mode. Now this is read only, but I get all my tabs back. So I still have the overview, initial phase, you know, expansion phase or whatever it is I have going here. Have the general tab. And by the way, one thing that is a little bit to get, you know, takes a little bit to get used to, but works, is where we had everything spread out on the legacy version. It's kind of grouped in certain ways, and we had arguments about how to group them. Here, we still have the grouping, but it's all vertical. So this is more modern or more browser based, but it works. If you hit the little edit button, you can actually go through and make all the changes here. I'll skip that for today. Conversations, we talked about that in the past. It's great about chatting about the job and open up conversations. We have a video on that if you're interested. Attachments do work. I can download them. I can upload them. I can do all that other stuff. I don't think well, it's a brand new job, so I don't have anything in here. So I could add one to my desktop, upload, I don't know, lighting schedule or something like that in here if I wanted to. All right, initial bid, back to that. And what I want to do here is also show you that there's the other row of tabs that we've had in the past. So I can click on customers. And sorry for any distributors that might be on here. I'm going to add a few distributors, and I'm kind of playing as a rep in this version, but I'll add in a customer, Cabot Distribution, Great Lakes. I don't know who makes up this stuff. It's kind of cool. Mega Distributing, that'll work. Hit apply. All right, so I have my 3 distributors in there. All works the same. That's it. Other than one fact, let me go and do a file and show you one thing that we've kind of had conversations over. I'll simply say that. So in Legacy Oasis, it's print. So you print this, you print that, and then there's certain places you do a send or whatever. Well, here we're migrating more to send as opposed to print, because that's really kind of what you're doing. There's never real printer engagement, if you will. But if I click send here, it begins the process to actually send a quote somewhere. So I can do a breakout, bill of material, office copy, all these other items. But what I'll focus on is a customer quote. And let me send it to everybody. And I could add in my contacts. I'm not going to worry about all that, but it works pretty much the same way. Next, do you want to limit the manufacturer? So we did change this up a little bit. No, I want to send the entire quote. I don't want to strip it down to one of the brands, because I'm sending out an updated quote or whatever. There's the ability to select options. So an anonymous option basically means I didn't put the word option in there and start breaking up my bill of material by option. So it just says the anonymous one, the entire thing. So basically just hit next if you know what's going on there. I'd kind of like to see us change this one up a little bit, but the main thing is I have my show unit price, extended price, grand total lots. Anything else I want to show on here, I can click it and it'll go and work just like it did in the legacy version of Oasis. Okay. All right. And at this point, I'll hit email. You'll see exactly the same thing as it had in the past, but again, it's laid out a little bit. So have the send message web version, if you will. So on the left-hand side, I see each one of the emails that's about to be sent or prepared, if you will. I see who it's to. Now, I didn't actually put in anybody's, I didn't select anybody there, so I'll just manually put in myself. Put in, we do have the same routines here as far as building out messages. All that works the same way as far as creating your default message. If you don't know how that works, by the way, support can help you out on that. It's the same stuff. And we do have a preview of the quote, just like we had in the past, if it's one quote or multiple. Lots of other features in here. The one thing we did work around is if you want to download and take a look at the quote before you actually send it, you could actually download the PDF and build your own if you want, email. And that's pretty much it. Let me send this one. And just like that, it's sent. And just like in previous Oasis, we're going to identify that it's been sent. Also, there's the set status on the quote to quoted, and we're going to add it to the bid board. So I'll apply both those. And I can show you more of this, but pretty much if you used Oasis and use the send message feature inside of Oasis on the desktop, it's going to feel the same. It's just going to look a little different. That's all. So I'll go ahead and hit cancel, go back to my project. And like I said, if you have any questions, just pop those in the chat. Trinity will get a hold of me towards the end, and we'll address as many of those as we can towards the end of the conversation here. All right, next thing, I might as well just show you the submittals because, hey, it's there. So if I go to File, New, Submittal like, works pretty much the same. I can identify whether I want to roll up kits. If you use submittals in Oasis, it works the same like it's worked for the past 20 some years. So next, select specifiers. I don't have any specifiers on my job, so they don't show here. But that's where you could say, hey, here's the architect, here's the engineer. Put them on the cover sheet. Really is where it goes. And then next. I can select or unselect the various items on the job, or if I have multiple options, I can add or remove the option. Again, works pretty much the same, just looks a little different. Create. There you go. You have submittals. The only thing that's a little different is we have this read-only view here that just shows everything before you actually get into it. And you just have to click the little edit button to actually make some of the changes. And there it is. I can go through and just for argument's sake, I'll make that an exit right there. There you go. But I made that the other day, so I'm sorry. And you can do all your highlights. I'm terrible at highlighting. Save. There you go. Again, I can print it. I can send it. Works the same. More details if you want to just get in there and play it. You probably figure it out pretty quick. All right, go back here real fast. And there you go. General tab still exists. Notes still exist. The attachments still exist. So you can upload attachments to this as well, like the one-off cut sheets or whatever. All right. By the way, you can always go to edit quote. Remember those features inside of Legacy? And sorry if you didn't know about it. I'm just showing you this. This feature also exists in Legacy, and that is I can start my submittal or order, click edit quote, and bam, I'm right back inside the project. So old feature, but that shows you all the little details we've been working on throughout the system. And there are a lot of them. All right, so let me go and do a create orders. And this feels a little bit different. Oh, no winning customer selected, so I have to go back. So I'll just go back and go to my customers tab. I think there's a quicker way of doing this now, but I'll just do this way. I have my 3 different distributors on here. We're going with Mega today. They're the winning customer. Yay. And at this point, and by the way, all this updates immediately. Couple of details on here I totally forgot about, and they're important enough, although this is an overview to kind of touch on. One is a lot of screens like this, they update immediately. So the quote got updated. There's no need to save, it's just done. Now, when we're talking about the items tab, there's a lot more going on here that you kind of have to play with a little bit to get used to. One is multiple people can be in the same quote editing at the same time, and you can see what they're doing. It's kind of weird, but you can see the changes as you're collaborating, if you will. It's not the last save wins. It is you're working on the same document, which is again just a little different out there, but it works quite well actually. And you do have the ability to undo the other person's stuff. So if you undo the other person's stuff or your stuff based on the order in which they came in, which is, again, you have to play with it. And I think it's up in the top. They moved it on me last time I had 2 people in here, but I believe it's at the top here where you can actually see who's in there with you. So if you're working with a manager or another salesperson, you'll see who's in there, which is, again, pretty cool and a little weird sometimes. All right, I have a winning customer. Let me go ahead and create my orders again. And at this point, I have to select which factory I want to work with. So Better Design. And at this point, I'm going to click on the bill of material, which will update for whoever the factory is that I have on there. I can, it used to be checks. Now we're doing these little slider things. Again, we're playing with some UI elements here. What's the PO number? So I'll say 22, 12, 13A. So there's my PO, and then I can identify who I want it to go for. So I already know who the distributor is. Now the question is, who do I want to actually send the emails or work with on the order side? So I just selected from the list of contacts underneath Mega as my distributor there. Okay, that made any sense. Again, I can go through order entry. It has all the same stuff in here, pre-fill this out and addresses, so I don't have to copy all those down. I kind of like doing that. So again, use customer ship to, pull down the ship to information on there. I'm not going to use an alternate, and so forth. Works, like I said, very similar. It's just laid out a little different. Hit apply. And give it a second here. Boom, I have an order. I just created an order. Now, warning, if you have O4 already, the order system's there. It mostly works, but it is definitely in beta. Don't dive in the deep end right out on your big order that you have to get out right now. Stay in Legacy Oasis or Desktop Oasis for right now. But if you have a small one or you just want to play a little bit, it does work. We are very interested in feedback on it. And this is the order system inside of Oasis at this point going forward. By the way, it does have the project back there where I can create the next order and everything like that, which is kind of nice. All right, so show you how it's laid out a little bit. There is a little circle right here that shows all the different elements that you could do to an order. And I'll show you this a little bit with something shipped or invoice, whatever. It looks kind of neat. It shows you all the details. Again, if I hit the little edit button, I can start changing things that I'm allowed to change. It's not transmitted, so I see that right out the gate. you can have conversations about it, but I'll skip that for today and go to items. So in here, I can actually edit and just start doing whatever I need to do on the order. So make changes to the catalog number, pricing, do a hold for release, whatever. Works pretty much the same. It just feels different, if you will. I'll actually add a shipping item here in a minute as well. But once it's all filled out, works very much the same. It just requires a little playing. I'll go into File and Send to Manufacturer. Okay, and I don't have my system filled out. There's some other things we're going to do on this as we move forward, but I'm going to just hand key my email address in here because I didn't have one on file here. And send email. I could have downloaded it, by the way, and manually emailed it. It just creates a PDF that you download. And that's it. It's sent. There's some UI cleanups that they can do in here. I think I already saw it come in. And there's my PO, just like I've done in the past, a million times in trainings. Okay. All right. So that's in there. Just for argument's sake, go to the next step just to get something in there. The shipping, I'll go ahead and add a shipping and say, hey, it's shipped today. It's shipped from Cabot, UPS, and tracking 1Z, whatever it is I typed. All right. There's a couple of things we're working on. Like I said, it's definitely in beta, but a lot of this does work. And it's just trying to get the little knick-knacky things like that worked out. That's where we're at right now. So that showed it as shipped, and I think it's saved. Let me go back to my general tab. And that's what I want to show you. Since everything's shipped, it actually filled out that next circle inside there. So the outside is basically what's released. If there's a gap, there's something on hold. Like if you have half the circle, half has been released on count, half is on hold by count. And shipped is by count as well. So half the items have shipped, go halfway around the circle. If it's all shipped, it'll go all the way around like it is right now. If you have something that's canceled, you see a little red, I think it's at the top here, where it'll show basically an amount that's been canceled, or it's actually count if memory serves. All right, invoice will be by dollar. So if it's 100% invoiced by dollar, it'll show there, and then receive be the amount of money you received on this by dollar. This is a commissioned order, so it'll be the commission received. And if it is a resale, it'll be the amount you actually received from whoever your customer. So, all right, lots of details. If you knew what I was talking about there, you probably work in Oasis every day. But my main point is it works pretty much the same. We just added a nifty little wheel and made it work in the browser. Okay. All right, that's the main stuff I wanted to go through as far as transactions to show that a lot is in there. The invoice section is not ready for read write yet, so it's read only at the moment in Legacy, but it does work. You can actually see the invoices. And on that note, I have a couple of things I want to walk through as far as updated systems to show you some really cool what I'll call critical features actually as we go forward. So the first one, I want to go back to my little Oasis icon up here, the application section, and go to projects. This one's actually kind of neat in that if I go to tools and I go to quote backlog, yes, we have a quote backlog in the system, and it works pretty good. The main thing we're trying to do is anytime you send a quote out to a customer, it goes on this backlog. So that establishes the beginning of the process. Now, how does it come off the backlog is the important element here, because if you go through the process and well, let me go back another way. Sending a quote out and putting it on the backlog is the easy part. Getting people to follow up and actually take it out and saying it's been lost or abandoned or whatever is really hard to do. So what most people settle on is just some process to pull it out. Again, Oasis does it. If you get an order, it'll automatically pull it out of the backlog. But at some point we pull it out by time. And here are the rules. And this is documented in a couple of places, and we'll get you the details. But 90 days of a quote that you sent to a customer, if nobody touches it, nobody goes back in the quote, not even to add an attachment or anything like that, we pull it off the list. In other words, after 90 days, you're just sitting there. It might come back, but you might as well say it's, probably not. After 12 months, it's going to go away after the bid date. So we kind of give up there. Most likely after 12 months, you're going to create a new bid, reprice it at a minimum. And at that point, you have it comes back into the backlog. So anyway, that's the main thing I want to identify is its quote backlog, when stuff gets put into it and how it comes out of it. Now it's all about your process and how you actually work the backlog. So on this one, all of it, each one of these screens is going to have the quote status. And again, your statuses may be generic like this one or standard like this one, or you may have actually thought through deeper processes on how to go through and identify stuff that's quoted, backlog, or whatever. But this is my quoted volume. My submitted volume is small because this is a fake database, but most reps have submitted or order pending as being fairly big. And again, it depends on your process there. And each one of these just identifies the amount of volume in there, the amount of quotes in there. And then it just gives you a little bit of the backlog on there. The key element here is now I can flip the views and say, hey, I want to take a look at that by factory. So now when the factory calls up and says, hey, what's our backlog? You have it right here, just like that. You just click on it, boom, it's there. And this does update. I think it updates once a week. I'll have to get back on that. I think it's either nightly or once a week. I can't remember where we set it. The key here is this does actually show the volume for each one of these. I don't know why we have a factory called 200,000, but that's kind of cool. And then I can click into it and find out exactly what's going on. So if I click into lights and more here, I see the exact project listing, the total amounts, and so forth. So there is the backlog. So next question I usually get when I show that is, okay, that's fine, but how do I send it to the factory? Pretty easy. Go to File, Manufacturer Quote Backlog, XLS, identify the factory I want to go to. So lights and more, I think, is the one. Do I want to include child brands if it's a conglomerate? Do I include the project headers or the lines or both? So you can actually show the actual lines on the quote if you're wanting to send this over to a factory because they want to know what's in the pipeline, so to speak. I hit OK, it processes it. And at this point, we have a spreadsheet. It's just data. I mean, our goal wasn't to make it look pretty. The main thing is make the manufacturer get their answers. By the way, this is what we loosely called around here for a while as we were developing the manufacturer shut up report. So it has all the details in there and some other pieces to actually get them what they need, and hopefully they'll be quiet at that point. So, all right, so that is manufacturer shut up report. Now, more in here, you can actually take a look at the details here by vertical market, which is kind of nice. Again, not too much in this database, but if you code your jobs, you can actually take a look and see where things are flowing throughout the time. And by people, by specifiers, again, not much in here, but you'll probably have better specifiers on your jobs there. So anyway, neat little report. That is the backlog. It works pretty good. I've gotten a little bit of feedback so far on it. It is out there. If you have any questions or comments, just again, support or anybody else, just go use it and let us know what you see. All right, last big direction on this. So this last one is one that's a little bit leading in that we're not quite ready for invoices, but the report is done, and I'm starting to get some good feedback from a few people using it. But if I go to invoices and I go to Pat Aging, and it's been out there for a while, but I wanted to show it to everybody as a recap this at the end of the year here, because it's really helping people take a look at what they're owed. I'll be blunt. So when I'm out training and when I'm out working with processes with on-site with folks, it usually comes down to, how do we make sure we're getting paid for the work we've done? I mean, that's really what it boils down to. And it usually leads to questions on projects, questions on orders, how to do one thing or another. But what we have here in this report is very subtle, but very important. Let me pick on this one, all about lighting. This is June, okay? And what this cell is trying to tell me is very specific here. So one of them is there's been $686 that have been applied in commissions to that, for that factory, two invoices on that factory in Oasis in June. So that's basically my commission check for June for that brand, okay? But another thing that's happened here, we have an order that was put in the system that we never got paid for. And there's been also an invoice on a different order. I'll show you this here in a second, that we never got paid for. And what we're showing here is basically a missing amount of money that the system believes we should have got paid for. So now the question is, how does it come up with that number? Well, what's happening in the system, and we've been doing this for a while, is there's an algorithm we've been running that some people have found on quotes, where it basically identifies lead times based on historical shipments. And you can actually do the same thing on orders, where you can actually identify the estimated ship date based upon previous shipments. And I'll show you where this is at in 04 here in a minute. You can actually see the same thing in Legacy. But using that data, what we're able to do is say, okay, the order got placed in the system, let's say in February. Actually, I think it was in May. I looked at this earlier trying to prep for this, but I believe it was placed in May. And the system believes, or based upon the data I have in here, again, this is kind of randomized data, so it's not real, but based upon the way I set up the randomization, it took about a week for it to go from ordered to shipped, okay? And then the terms, or the statistics in the system, it usually takes about a month for it to pay after that. So what the system was finding is something that shipped or was ordered in early May should have actually been shipped in May, and we should have gotten paid late June on the commission check. So it's actually running all these calculations in the background, which is kind of neat. On this one, we got the invoice in from the factory, but based upon the statistical terms, or the what it's seen in the past, the invoice came in May, but we didn't get the commission check in June, or we didn't get paid on the invoice in June. Now, it may not be a big deal, especially if it's just 1 month. So if this was July, it may not have been a big deal. But what this does give you is anything that's more than maybe a month or two back, actually 2 or more months back, it probably is starting to show you that you have an issue. And we found this to be pretty consistent. Working with and talking with several reps that I know are already using the system, is they'll take a look at this and go, yeah, it looks like they didn't pay us, or they really are shorting us, or sitting on invoices. There's a few factories known for doing that. And now you have to do is just click on this report, take a look at it, and say, hey, that's back in June. We're in December now. And let me click on that thing. And sure enough, here is the invoices and the items. Well, actually, it's the PO invoice combinations there. And the invoices, the invoices as well that are in the system we should get paid on. So I see everything I need to go and say, hey, what in the world's going on here? This is a lot of stuff. And it looks like it actually it was invoiced, a while back. And we still haven't got paid on it. So again, how it does the work is it literally takes a look at the PO, the brand, and the item. It actually takes a look at the catalog numbers here, and it starts projecting roughly how long it takes for that type of item, that particular catalog number, to ship. And then it takes a look on top of that is how long it goes from the ship date to the actual pay date for you to get that. Okay. I know that's a lot. If you're an accounting person, you're like, yeah, this looks good. If you're probably not an accounting person, be like, yeah, whatever. So apologize for that. I get excited about it because usually it makes my accounting people that I'm talking to happy, and makes me happy on that. So, all right. By the way, if you're clicking to that, you will see the order. Again, it's all linked together just in Oasis form fashion, which is kind of neat. And it does confirm the fact that we have a released PO that was dated back in, back in June, actually, and nothing. So, all right. Good there. Go back. By the way, it does project as well. So again, if I have an order that's placed this month, by the way, I was in here playing around a little bit, and so all the orders I generated actually is starting to identify, hey, you should get some money off of that, off these plain orders, or actually invoices going in the future. So it does project a little bit forward if you put the order in the system and the invoices as well. So to use this, if you're interested in it, or you want to tell your accounting people, they'll be more excited probably. And just tell them, as long as you're putting the orders in consistently, you're putting invoices in consistently, nothing special or anything. I just do regular items on that. And you're placing your commission checks into Oasis consistently. This thing just happens. In other words, it's just working in the background for you. There you go. All right. So that's pretty neat. I get excited about it. I know a lot of people get bored with it, but there it is. That pretty much is the bulk of what I wanted to cover for today. So I'm going to leave it to Trinity to tell me if I missed anything or if there are questions we need to go over.
Yeah, so I did have a few questions. The first one being for the activity tile, it would be nice to be able to filter by user or by work group.
Both are happening. So by user is really easy. You can't set up an activity tile that says, hey, I'm really concerned about Bob not doing his work, so I'm going to create a Bob tile. It doesn't do that. But what I can do is anytime I'm inside of the system here or inside the tile, I can click and say, oh, I wonder what Brian's doing. Okay, yeah, he's not doing much. Let's go have a conversation. Probably not what you should do, but yeah, you can click and filter as when you get down to individuals in this already. Also by the source there. Now by work group, that is actually in the works. I can't remember if that's active or not. Let me take a look real quick. Create. Yes. So one thing that we have here that's a visual issue that we're correcting, that's the training has actually been on this, is if you put a work group in here, that is not going to show everybody in that work group this tile. It doesn't do that. What it does do is it filters this tile down to that work group. So if I have, if I'm in two different states, so I'm in Arkansas and Mississippi or something like that, I can have an Arkansas work group tile and I can have a Mississippi work group tile. And that gives me the ability to look at those offices independently for whatever reason.
The next question is that they don't see the quote monitor tile on their O4.
Good, because we leaked the login activity out before we should have. So quote monitor isn't out yet. It's hidden and it will be shown in January. Okay, next one.
All right, the next one is going to be, doesn't O4 pull the assigned sales account that are assigned in the legacy OASIS for the specifiers?
Yeah, it should. It better. If you're seeing any issues there, it took a long time for us to get legacy to kind of settle down. And so far, it looks like it's working correctly in O4. But if you're having any issues, let us know, because I know that there's a lot of global settings that we kind of invented over the past 20 years that may you may be seeing something we're not seeing is what I'm trying to hint at. So, but yeah, if it doesn't behave pretty close to what legacy does, let us know.
Next is going to be, can you change the setting in the quote backlog change to 6 months?
Oh, the quote backlog. Write that one down, because one of the things we've been fighting with back and forth is when to actually drop the quote out. So what happens right now, just kind of recap, is after 90 days of inactivity, in other words, nobody even touched the thing, it pulls it off the backlog. And then after 12 months after the bid date, we pull it off. And I have been batting it back and forth about adding in a setting in there that says 6 months or whatever, because that for a lot of groups, 6 months really is the time in which it's dead. So yeah, send those ideas to us. That's a good point there. So right now it's only 12 months. Thank you for the observation there, because I concur. Actually, I just lost the battle.
Next is, can there be a header showing the filter dates on the quote backlog? Can't duplicate the same reported dollars by doing such a search in legacy. Which criteria is it using?
Oh,
maybe
yeah.
A little info that could be hovered on that indicates the search criteria that generates the results being displayed.
That's going to be a tough one. So where we're struggling right now is a lot of these tiles are what I like to call task oriented, and the queries that happen in the background are very specific. What we're going to have to do is actually add search criteria to the search screens to mirror the activity tile. So it's going to have to go the other way. Basically, you can't do it. So that might be another one for us to talk through, Trinity. So I'd throw that one in the list to talk through, because I do know people like to try to replicate, or if they have a question, they like to run an open report on there. So the answer is you can't do it. It has like the 6 month thing there. It has a different behavior and makes it really difficult to actually reproduce the report. Makes it difficult to reproduce it using the standard OASIS reporting system. So there you go. So, good question.
Those are all the questions we have for now. I'll wait a few more minutes before we close up. So if you have any questions, feel free to send them our way in the chat or either through a support ticket.
There you go. Lots of details. A little bonus one for those of you that are in territories where you actually have to monitor a lot of spec jobs. The quote backlog has another variation on that. That is basically the spec registration backlog. And what's nice about this is it monitors stuff, monitors quotes that are flagged as spec registration, and starts reducing down based upon orders have been placed against it. So it's kind of like a backlog. You put in there and say, hey, I have brand A, brand B on here, and the name of it is, you know, Big Museum or whatever. And it if you get one of those brands come in, it goes on this backlog and starts deducting away from there, which is kind of neat. So. Okay, so anyway, I threw that in just to have a little bonus one while we're waiting a couple minutes there.
Someone asked, when will this recording be available? I'll go ahead and answer that. If you registered for the webinar, we try to send it by the end of the week, and then it'll be available to everybody probably the beginning of next week. But if you did sign up, you should get an email once it's ready. Next question is how to set up or change your email and or password when logged into O4, i.e. the legacy email preferences.
Okay. A lot of that is, they moved them around on me, so I hope I can find them. If I go back over to the little question mark over here, I can go into security settings for one set of stuff I need to show you anyway. And in here, I can basically change my password, have to put in my current password, new password, and confirmed. Also, you can set up two-factor authentication, and for my stuff logged in our real databases, I have that set up. And what's nice about that is it'll actually tell you, it'll send you a little code you have to use to log in, and then it'll confirm every time I log in. So if someone logs in as you can tell that pretty quick. By the way, the bearer token, that's if you're doing all the API stuff that we see more and more folks do. So that takes care of that part. The where did we put the?
If you go to the home screen and then go to file, there's email configuration.
There you go. Now, can you use Microsoft Outlook in a web browser? No, I've already been asked that. It's not possible. And that's one of the biggest things that we have, that we fight is, well, I wouldn't say the biggest, but that's one of the things we run into when people move from legacy Oasis to, this is actually what the industry calls a hybrid environment. That is, you can use legacy and you can use the browser. Or you can use the browser. We have some folks who are using just the browser, which is a long conversation there. But if you set up your legacy Oasis to work with Outlook, you basically have to switch to either Office 365. There's a Gmail connector, SMTP, basically anything that doesn't use a local app, because Outlook it just doesn't work. We'll leave it there. So, but it works the same. I can because I'm logged in here. It was really easy to do. I just select Office 365. I click login to Office 365. What it does, it pops open another browser tab. Microsoft does their thing and they send us a token back, is what happens. But you have to be logged in. So, and there are other details people crash into as well. So if you have questions on that, definitely contact support. They're used to setting those up, and usually it just works, but every so often there's a little issue. Any other questions?
Brian, what should they do if they go to use the quote backlog and it is blank?
Okay, probably what happened is I didn't have a chance to touch your database. There's just send a note to support or anybody. We'll probably actually see it because we get an error on that. But just drop us a note and we can get that up and going for you. So just let us know. So, but it should work. If it doesn't, just let. Basically, it's a new-ish feature, and some of the databases I didn't touch. We'll leave it at that. So. Okay. Any other questions? All right, then. Merry Christmas to everyone. And if you have any questions or comments about any part of Oasis, really, legacy, Oasis 04, just let us know, and we'll answer your question the best we can. I do appreciate your time. Trini will send you out the links to the webinar here, and talk to y'all later.
Bye. Thank you.